Welcome everyone to the Career Management Webinar number 2, part of the series of career management webinars. And we're joined today by Bob Mulcahy. Bob, thanks for being here with us.
Patrick, my pleasure. The second webinar deals with the job announcement and properly reading it. And people ask, why is this an important topic that comes obviously so early in this series? And the answer is quite simple. It provides your roadmap. If the job announcement is done correctly, it'll provide you with the roadmap necessary to begin your journey to getting what you want, which is to meet in front of the people at the committee. And our world has changed, and the things that committees are doing has changed. So the job announcement becomes a key ingredient. It has several key areas that also can be very helpful to you in understanding things. One is information on the club and its background. So you can learn information on the club and maybe other ways that you can find out more information on the club. It has a description of the position. So it'll tell you, what the club and what they're looking for. And so you need to be able to answer and be qualified for what they're looking for. Also, it covers the requirements of the position. What is it that they're looking for? And we'll talk about how they put things in certain orders, what you can tell from that. Then there's key personal criteria that they're looking for. And if they put key personal criteria into it, you're going to need to answer that, and we'll talk about that later. But the process for applying, which is very important, because I think people, bypass applying for jobs sometimes and go and do what they just think they should do, and that can have a negative adverse effect when you're applying for the job. And then lastly, as part of this, you need to understand why the previous professional left their position. And we'll talk about that shortly. The current reality plays a role in why this process and understanding the job announcement has changed dramatically in the last year. One is the time the committee spend actually reading resumes has diminished greatly. In fact, they're just reading them highlights in a lot of times and might just be Googling people. So you need to be able to put what you want to get across to them in a manner that they come back and it hits their eye and they'll come back to it. You got to address their individual hot buttons in order to entice them to read your materials in greater depth. If there's women on the committee, you need to be able to make sure that women's golf hits them square in the face. Junior golf, square in the face. Golf instruction, square in the face. And you need to be able to understand their needs. And the job announcement will tell you a lot about what their needs are. So let's start with the club's background information. And I took this excerpt from a job announcement that we did with Glen Ridge a little over a year and a half ago. And the sentence that really tells a lot is, a lot of what you'll see sometimes in a background of club information is stuff they'll take just right off of their website, cut and paste, but they paid somebody to do that, and so it does mean something. But in this case, this was a statement that was put in by the president of the club. So it says, established in 1894, Glen Ridge Country Club is one of the oldest country clubs in New Jersey. The club's friendly and unpretentious membership enjoys an extensive array of amenities, including an 18-hole golf course, which was recently restored to its original Willie Park Jr. design. Okay, so what was important here? Obviously, I've highlighted in some different colors words, and so they must mean something. And so friendly and unpretentious means they want a golf professional that is warm and outgoing. Okay, that's very important to them. Warm and outgoing. Extensive array of amenities. You need to be able to manage a wide variety of programs and relationships with the management. So in other words, one of the key things that they were saying there was there's a pool, tennis courts, and the clubhouse is active. Well, for the kids, you need to be able to work with the other people to coordinate all of their needs. So when they say there's an extensive array of amenities, it means there's an extensive array of amenities that get used. And anytime that you have an extensive array of amenities and somebody mentions it, there's management of what has to go, coordination of what has to go between those departments. And so obviously they're here looking for somebody who has experience or can show them that they have an extensive array, ability to manage through coordinating all of these details. Recently restored, look, that means they care about their facility and they'll spend money. but they're also going to need to see a return on their investment. So what it tells you as a golf professional is it says, okay, and where this is important is maybe the job is not as good financially as you think it should be or deserves to be. But what they're saying here in code is they're willing to spend the money if they can see a return on investment. So they'll be willing to spend money on their golf professional in the future if they see value in the program. And obviously, there's not seeing a ton of value in a lot of the places in their program. So you need to go in and show them a roadmap to doing that. And also, you can tie into that, if you get the job, you can tie into that improvement of the roadmap, performance bonuses for yourself. So that is a key ingredient here, recently restored, if the job isn't as valuable as you think it could be, but it also shows they're willing to invest in themselves and their product. And that's a great sign for anybody that's looking to go to a club. Okay, so that's important. You know, they're willing to spend money on renovations. They're willing to be in the, you know, on the front step of what's going on in the golf industry. Those are, you know, three things that you might typically normally bypass and just glaze over. If you really look at them, that was a paragraph that was put in specifically by the president of the club, and so it says a lot for the club. And so you can't just take that some of these things are going to be cookie cutters. You have to look into these job announcements and see things that aren't there. And quite frankly, now maybe you can see why this is so important, because you could use these three things in a portfolio that you're putting together for them, a visual portfolio for them, or tailor in your resume these points and how you accomplish those points at your current job, because they've obviously identified these as being very important.
Yeah, Bob, I think I want to just chime in there on that. And I think that too many times, and I was guilty of this at one time in my career, is just copy and pasting, you know, the cover letter or things from one thing to another. And it wasn't until I really started reading into these. Now, you look at enough of these job descriptions and you kind of see the stuff that's the same from every one. But then, like this paragraph you're saying was specifically put in there. And I think that's what you got to do, is you've got to be able to read that paragraph, know that it's different, and then pick out these little things that you've highlighted and work them into your cover letter and try to hit those hot buttons. I think that's important for everybody to know, not to just copy and paste. You know, you got to tailor it to each one.
Absolutely, Patrick, and I think that's you know, you bring up a good point there. I mean, and sometimes it means you've got to actually sit down and study the job description, and some of it, yeah, 85% of it is exactly the same as every other one. But it's when you can find that 15%, especially when you don't know anybody at the club, to get you personal information as to what they're looking for. You know, that's critically important. So thanks for putting that into perspective, because that is at the nut of what we're trying to do here and get at is being able to find these things that are specific to that club in the job announcement. That's what we're really getting at. I mean, everybody understands the resume, everybody understands the 9 parts of a golf opportunity, all of those things that go with it. But this is really at the heart of being able to build the specific roadmap and make it easier for you. 100%. So the next topic that we're going to discuss here is the description of the position. And in this position, or this job description, we said the head professional will report directly to and is supervised by the chairman of the golf committee, and is a member of the golf committee, the greens committee, the ladies 18-hole committee, and the ladies 9-hole committee. So what does this tell you? Really what it basically tells you is it utilizes a traditional management structure where there's 3 department heads. There's a superintendent, there's a general manager, and there's a golf professional. A lot of clubs are moving away from, you know, this model, but what you need to know in all of these things is you have to be able to work with both of those department heads, and they're really looking for that. But in this situation, it's your boss will be the golf chairman, and what they're really looking for is, are you able to manage relationships with, you know, members? And a member of all these committees, you better illustrate experience in a committee environment. And, you know, whether you're the head golf professional, if you're a head golf professional, you've got total experience with it. They understand that you have experience with it. If you're an assistant, you've probably participated in some of these things. So as an assistant, one of the things that you would want to be, trying to put together potentially in some additional information that you would send them is maybe an agenda for each of these different meetings. And the agenda doesn't have to necessarily be specific to them or for you to understand what they're doing, but it just shows them that you understand how you're going to, go about this. And then, in particular for an interview, you should be prepared as an assistant. You should be prepared to be able to talk about the golf committee, greens committee relationships, and how you're going to go about managing those relationships. But this shows you who you report to, so you understand before you're going in. Now, in this situation, this means that the general manager is not probably going to have a lot of influence in the process. So if you know somebody that knows the general manager, while it can help, it's probably not as big a situation as where the general manager, is the COO. And, in that situation, you can simply, if you know the general manager, have somebody that knows, your general manager knows that general manager, that can help you. But realistically here, this just tells you who the reporting structure is. And you really can't spend much time worrying about it, but you need to understand it so you can understand who's making the decisions and where they play in this. This means that the chairman of the golf committee is probably heading the selection committee, and he's probably got the most input as to what's going to go on here. Okay? Okay, we talk about requirements of the position. And look, most of them have, most of them, the job announcements and requirements of the position are very standard. What you do want to see here is, like in this particular job announcement, there was a requirement for a comprehensive understanding of the history and tradition of the game of golf. Anytime you have a club that's, this was built in 1896, I believe, was on the first page, and it was a Willie Park Jr. design. Okay, those are two, at the time when golf was just getting started in the United States, and Willie Park has designed some of the greatest golf courses, in our country. That means they want someone that understands and embraces the traditions of the game, because that's a very important part of their club. And in clubs like this, you'll typically go into the grill rooms or the locker rooms, and you'll see plaques or signs from all the years of club champions, the President's Cup, whatever it is. They're much more into this. So, if you work at a new club, a new flash and dash, you need to be able to let the committee understand that you embrace the history and tradition of the game of golf. Okay, so it's a lot of times when you come from a place that isn't similar to theirs, that's not an issue. But if you're working at a club that was built 5 years ago and is one of the new great modern golf courses, that may kind of scare them away because there's some continuity to that. So you need to show them how much you value the history and tradition. It's specifically when they said it in the job announcement. And then when they talk about possess a complete management skill set to include the ability to do the following: manage people, lead and continually recruit a team of high professionals, communicate effectively with a wide variety of people, act as an effective ambassador for the club, and become a positive part of the club and the club history. Okay, so what this is saying, because this was right at the top of the requirements for the position, if you take the first two together, manage people and lead and continue to recruit a team of high-level professionals, that means that they're concerned with what's going on presently, and that they don't feel that there's a high enough level of professional at their club. Okay, so they're telling you that. So what this gets into is this starts to talk about how you talk about your team and how you build your team and how your team goes on to other levels. This is why someone that's a golf professional that's, placed other, assistants as head professionals or moved their assistants on and become head professionals, those kind of things, show that the ability to manage and lead all on their own, just that. But if you're an assistant and you need to be able to show them, how you're going to manage people, what have you learned at your job, and then how are you going to lead that team? And those are things that you can put into a resume, but there are things that you can be prepared to address also in the, in the interview. And this is what we're talking about: building your roadmap and building and understanding what you need to do. Communicate effectively with a wide variety of people. That's code for the person that was in that position was not communicate, or there was, now whether they were, because remember we talked about perception is reality, whether this is true or not, they were perceived as not communicating with a wide variety of people. And so I think that gets down to, in a resume, you can do that through showing how you interact with different chairmen and different members in events and outings. In an interview, it's about talking about how you're going to manage your day and how you're going to manage your time and who are you going to see as those go on. Act as an effective ambassador for the club. In this particular situation, what it meant was the club is an integral part of the town, and most of their members come from the town. It's not a club that has people coming from 30 and 40 minutes away. So that means that you're going to be part of the town. And so what they're after here, they're after somebody that's going to fit into that environment, and it's really more understanding the environment and telling them how you're an upstanding person, you're going to act that way. But that's what this one means, is that this one's really because it's a club within a town, and the members are all town people. If you're in town, you're representing the club, and you need to understand that and become a positive part of the club history. Obviously, when a club has been around since the late 1800s, history is an important part, and they want their golf professional to be able to, embrace that and be part of that. And you can contribute to that, because I've seen a lot of golf professionals do some great things about taking traditions that are time honored at a club and updating them and bringing them into the 21st century. And that's the stuff and the ideas that you want to think about as you're preparing, for the interview and creating this roadmap. When we get into key personal criteria. So in this job announcement, the club had identified the following personal traits: strong personal and professional values, high energy and enthusiasm with a superb work ethic, understanding the value of traditions at a club, passion for the game of golf, interpersonal attributes that exhibit a genuine interest in others, attention to detail with the personal stature and strength to make decisions. Okay, so here's some codes on this. Attention to detail with personal stature and strength to make decisions. Obviously, they have some rules enforcement issues at the club, and they want to make sure that the golf professional that they hire isn't going to be afraid to make those tough decisions. Okay? High energy and enthusiasm and superb work ethic. I think we all have that, but what that says is they're wanting that to be shown to them. Okay? You can have two people. Patrick and I could have completely different personas of how we, come across, but that doesn't mean that we both don't have a tremendous amount of energy and enthusiasm and a killer work ethic. But we just come across differently. What they're looking for here when they say something like that is they want to see that come across to them. Okay, that's important for them. It's important enough for them that they put it down here. Understanding the value of traditions at a club, we've gone over that. You know what it means when they've got a club this long. Passion for the game of golf, that's a code for our golf professional really hasn't played enough golf with us, so we don't think they like to play golf. So we want somebody that embraces playing golf and playing golf with them. So that's what that's code for. Anytime they put passion for the game, that doesn't mean that they're looking for somebody that is going to shoot 65 every time or win every section event. It just means they're looking for somebody that has a passion for the game, that is going to enjoy playing golf with them, and that's important. Okay, so in this situation, the process for applying for the job, this one, we were handling the situation. It's very important to follow the instructions, okay? If it's supposed to go to whoever it's supposed to go to, you do that. If you're going to send information to the club, you better have somebody specific that that's handling on the other side, because they tend to get a little upset. The first time they get one, fine. they just forward it on to us. But if you happen to be near the end because you're trying to make sure that they got your information, it can have a very negative effect because, they start forwarding a bunch over to, whether it's the PGA, whether it's us, whether it's Copland Keebler, it doesn't matter who it is. But the more they have to keep forwarding, their reaction then is, well, this person didn't read the directions, so it doesn't matter. They don't care. They don't know what they're doing, and that may not be the case. And you get thrown into a pool of candidates that you don't want to be thrown into. Follow the directions, follow the instructions. If there's additional information, call whoever's handling, the position and ask them if you can submit additional information, or tell them that you know somebody that can help you bring yourself to life to the committee, and that's fine. There's different ways to do this, but you can get caught.
Bob, can I ask you how, because I see, and I think I've done this in the past as well, is that, you get one of these announcements and you get excited about it, maybe you have some connections or whatever, and you want to get your resume in, and I've probably done it too quick at times and not taken the time to do my homework and really read through it. And, how important is that? Or what's your thoughts on that as far as, what's the timing of trying to get your resume in? I mean, there's a deadline. You don't want to be right on the deadline, but, I just think that I've seen too many come through too quick and you have errors. And I think it's important to just take your time and make sure that you do your homework. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so there's two things at play here. So if a third party consulting firm is handling the submission of resumes. So in this situation, the submission of resumes was 5 p.m. on October 4th. The committee did not get any information on any candidate until probably the 6th or 7th of October, okay? So, in a situation where there's a third party, typically the club is not getting any of the information until it's time to make decisions on who's going to be interviewed. So if it's a third party, you've got plenty of time, so you need to slow down and take your time. If a job is being handled internally by themselves, or even the PGA, they're turning the submissions over as they come in. Okay, so what that means from for applying standpoint is you need to get your resume in as quickly as you can, and then you can continue to fill information, letters of recommendation if you want to submit additional things as you go. Because the reason being is the committee members are going to be excited when the job goes out into the marketplace, and so they're going to look at resumes as they come in. The problem is so many resumes start to come in and they realize how much time it takes to actually read these things that they slow down and they stop reading them as you go into the middle of the process. And that's why I said the hot buttons at the beginning, understanding the hot buttons, and why understanding the job announcement is so important is because you've got to be able to hit the committee members' hot button if you submit in the middle, and even in the beginning, to be honest with you, but they're going to get tired of reading the resume, so they're just going to start looking for specific things that are important to them. Everybody should have a resume that can be tailored in 24 hours to fit whatever job announcement there is. If you have the time to read the job announcement, then sending letters of recommendation and sending additional information is a good thing. Knowing what's on your Google, because they're going to Google you. Knowing what's there is very important. So, you need to get the resume in a form that can be tweaked as it needs to be tweaked for this. But if a third party's handling it, just slow down. Don't, get everything right, because with that situation, a third party, you're better off submitting all of your materials at one time. Cover letter, resume, letters of recommendation, and any additional information that you want to give to them. Okay, does that answer your question, Pat?
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so utilizing the job announcement. It may seem, simple, and straightforward, but your resume and cover letter should clearly define how your previous experience and skill set will meet the qualifications of the position you're applying for. So when we talk about a cover letter, and we've talked about it previously, and we'll talk about it again, in future webinars. Your cover letter should be an introductory. It should be basically 3 paragraphs, and the second could expand it to 1 or 2 more. But the first paragraph is very simple. It's stating your desire to apply for the job and whatever the position is, and whoever it is that you're addressing. And then the second one is the ending sentence that you're very excited about the opportunity and how you can utilize that. Okay. In between that, specific information about how your qualifications fit their club. That's where you can use the job announcement to make sure that you're putting the important things down there. And then simply making sure your material matches the job description. That's why getting the things that aren't standard information out of the job description is important. And then preparing to get the most out of your references. I can tell you that I've been in numerous situations where you're getting down to deciding who the last candidates are to be interviewed, and somebody looks at, between 2 candidates, and somebody says, well, this person had 4 letters of recommendation, this person had 1. We're going to take the person with 4 letters of recommendation. So those things, there's things that you submit that are sometimes are important, sometimes aren't. Sometimes they never even read the letters of recommendation, but other times they do. So you need to get them, the most. But you can have pretty much all of those things set and ready to go with certain people that will probably give you a letter that they've signed, and you can change who it's going to. There's a perfect quote that ends all this. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The slogan, press on, has solved and always will solve the problems of the human race. Calvin Coolidge said that. And it's so true in this situation. You talk to the people that are, Patrick, you went through it and you've gone through it. And, I've talked to Keith Stewart on numerous times, and, he got so close, so close, so close. And how do you keep persisting? And you've got to, if this is what you want to do. And, the jobs are hard. Nobody's going to sit here and tell you they're not. But you've got to keep pressing on and trying to get better at what you can do. And, we'll talk about more things as we go on further in this series. But, if you're taking time to listen to this, I applaud you, because that's part of the persistence and determination. And you all have it, and it's a question of using it. So, I think I've used this quote before, but I really think it really ties in well with how you need to approach your job search. So
I agree. I think that's a great quote, because it does take percent. I've been through plenty of these, and you kind of get close, or you have the ones that you feel like you did great, didn't get it, or the ones that you bombed, and you just got to keep learning and keep moving forward. I think that's really really a good quote there. So, Bob, I appreciate it. This is great, and thank you for being here with us. Did you have anything else you wanted to add here?
No, I think I'm good, and you'll obviously be posting this, and obviously if people have any questions, they can contact you or I.
Absolutely. Thanks again for your time.
You got it, buddy. Thank you. Thanks, guys.